What's up, everybody? This is Noah from the Low-Rated Duelists, here bringing you my Spellbook deck profile for February 2017. And yeah, but a couple things before we get started. I'm aware that this deck is pretty bad, and it is pretty bad, but it is an anti-meta slash stun kind of deck, and if you kind of build it around that, you can definitely help it out and make it better, which is what I've done here. I'm not really a fan of stun decks or anti-meta decks, but the reason why I was inspired to make this deck was because I've just always been a huge fan of the archetype itself. The artwork on these cards is beautiful. Most of the cards are very high rarity, which I'm sure would appeal to anybody. And also, kind of like the thing that really kind of nudged me to go ahead and make the profile was I noticed one guy that we are subscribed to. His name's the Duelists. He posted a few days ago a Fairy Tale Spellbook deck profile where he's basically maining 3 copies of every Fairy Tale card. And this card right here, Fairy Tale Cinderella, it allows you to discard a spell card and then equip an equip spell from your deck, graveyard, or hand to it, which is really, really helpful because it's a spellcaster, which allows you to basically equip a Wonder Wand from your deck to this and then draw 2 cards, which really helps with consistency. And so I was like, man, I never thought of that before. That's a great idea. So I just wanted to give a shout out to him. This was his idea, and he basically inspired me to make this deck. So yeah, go check his channel out. It's really awesome, and I'll post a link to that in the description box down below. But getting into the profile itself, I'm not gonna go into some long detailed explanation for these cards because I feel like most of them are pretty self-explanatory. People know what spellbooks do. Yeah, I mean, the deck's been around for a long time. People know what they do. So, also one other thing I wanted to point out was, I think you'll see in one of the replays, I was running Temperance of Prophecy and World of Prophecy. That was an older build that I was testing for a while. I didn't really like that build too much, and so I kind of dropped those cards for more consistency and more traps, so to kind of beef up the stun factor and beef up the consistency. And so now we're just running the 2 copies of High Priestess instead of the 2 copies of High Priestess and the one copy of World of Prophecy. But yeah, not a lot of these cards really need any explanation. I feel like I can point out some of the kind of unconventional choices. I'm only running 1 copy of Spellbook Library of the Crescent because I just don't really like this card at all. It seems like it's never live because you can only activate it if you have no Spellbook spell cards in your graveyard, which is really not the case very often. Usually your first turn, or if you only had 1 in there and then shuffled it back to draw 1 with a Spellbook Tower. That's usually the only time that you're ever going to be able to get off Crescent's effect, so I'm only running 1 copy. Extra deck, I don't really go into a lot of these. I've made some rank 7s before by having 2 of the High Priestess on board. It doesn't really happen very often. I go into Daigusto Phoenix quite a bit with 2 of my Spellbook Magician of Prophecies. Because basically if your opponent has a clear board, you can detach material and attack twice for 3,000, which is pretty good. And then also during the main phase 2, you can overlay a Downward Magician on top of it, which is a spellcaster, which is great, because if you have a Fate set or a Spellbook of Wisdom set, you can basically use that to either protect your Downward Magician, or since you control a spellcaster, you can use Fate's effect to banish a card or Book of Moon something or something like that. But yeah, here's my 2 targets for Fairy Tale Cinderella, running the 1 copy of Moon Mirror Shield and 1 copy of Wonder Wand. Moon Mirror Shield is really good in this deck because it allows any of your monsters to basically attack over anything, which is going to be pretty relevant because all of the monsters, or most of them, are not very threatening at all. They're all pretty weak. So yeah, side deck, it's not really a real side deck. It's just kind of like some the 2-dimensional barriers on 2-dimensional barriers. I'm not maining these because I feel like even though they are great against some decks, they don't really hurt other certain decks really at all, like Cosmo or that new BES Boss Rush deck. I played that a couple of times, and yeah, Dimension Barrier really does nothing against those decks. So that's the reason why I haven't decided. But yeah, I had a blast testing this deck. It was really, really fun to play. And so I can't wait to get these cards in real life and get this deck going, in real life. So we're gonna go ahead and get into the replays now, and thank you guys for watching, and I really hope you enjoy.
you.